One of the most important things that a young person should know and that I should have known is that it's okay to be yourself. No one expects you to be anything other than yourself, and that you bring plenty of strengths to the table, and you don't need to try to do something that makes you not yourself.
Shannon Huffman Polson is a trailblazing U.S. Army veteran and one of the first women to fly the U.S. Army's Apache attack helicopter. Now a best-selling author and founder of the Grit Institute.
I think one of the reasons I left the military was because I felt like I had to be somebody that I wasn't. It would have been helpful to have had that advice early on. When you are transitioning out of the military is to say, hey, where am I contribute my best self? And again, going back to your own story, not the military story of you, not your unit story. And that was very powerful also, and it's probably part of every one of our stories.
What's up, everybody? This is Ryan Van Ornum back with another edition of the Milpreneur Podcast. I am so excited to be able to bring on Shannon Polson today. Thank you for being a part of everything that we got going on today. Shannon, how are you?
I'm doing great, Ryan. How are you?
I'm fantastic. It's a wonderful day, and I'm really excited to get into your story. I mean, tell us a little bit about your journey. Where'd you come from? We know you served. Which branch did you serve in? The audience wants to know all these little questions. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was Army Aviation from 1993 to 2001, not including a couple of additional years in the Guard as well. And I flew Apache attack helicopters. I was one of the first women to fly the Apache. I led line units on 3 different continents and then transitioned from the military through a full-time MBA program at the tech school at Dartmouth, and then worked in medical devices for a little bit, and then the technology field at Microsoft for a bit. And then for over 15 years, I've been really on my own now, doing my own business at the Grit Institute.
That's phenomenal. So so many of these facets that came into where you're building now with the Grit Institute. Do you feel at its core, it's shaped you from your military experience?
Completely, in ways that I certainly did not expect. I transitioned out through a civilian program, went into the corporate world, very much in the civilian sector. Obviously, the leadership components of the military apply to every single thing that we do in our lives and work after the military. So I don't think that I had thought about it being a specific part of my work in the way that it is now, because I was working again in medical devices and in technology. But now I'm really taking those leadership lessons from the military, especially those that work particularly well in the civilian world. Obviously, not everything works in the exact same way, and really bringing that to customers, to clients across really every industry and almost at every level, from entry level all the way up to the C-suite, because those lessons, as all of your listeners know, really do apply to all of us, no matter what it is that we're doing. I had not expected to be using the military experience in such a direct way, but I'm incredibly grateful for it.
Well, I know you have a book out as well, and it goes right into what you focus on with the Grit Institute, the Grit Factor. So you want to give a little quick synopsis on what it's about?
Sure. Yeah, I had a young lieutenant reach out to me and ask if I would mentor her as she began the same journey that I had taken a number of years before. And I immediately said yes, but realized, I just have my own experience that's limited by, both what I encountered, but also who I am. So I wanted to be able to scale the advice that I offered to this young leader. And so I started this project of interviewing leaders in the vanguards of their fields. And there's admirals and general officers and combat rescue swimmers and rangers and aviators from World War II to the present. And every single one of them shared stories and lessons learned so incredibly candidly that I realized this is starting to break out into a framework. And so I did the secondary research around that as well. And that's really what forms the core, the backbone of the Grit Factor. And the idea of the Grit Factor is, of course, grit is this critical skill for our success. But it's not just this discrete thing we take off the shelf for mile 23 of the marathon, although it's very helpful there as well. But it's really part of the content of our character. It's really a lot more holistic. And so the Grit Factor and these stories and lessons learned and the research that supports them breaks out into what I call the Grit Triad. There's commit, learn, and launch. And commit is really this foundational internal piece of owning our own stories and connecting to core purpose. It's really hard, deep internal work that honestly, from the military, it can be especially difficult because we've internalized so much of what the military's story is and the military's purpose that when you make that transition, you've got to do that work for yourself so that you can really own your own story and your own purpose and understand how it is that you're meant to contribute in the world. And once you've done that foundational work, you go into the next leg of the triangle. And the next leg of that grit triad is learn. And learn is about deep engagement in the present. It's about building your team and supporting your team. It's the art and science of active listening. And it's the mindset of grit and resilience, which is multifaceted, although we tend to kind of hone in on one particular part of that mindset that's especially critical. And then that last leg of the triad is launch. So you're grounded in the past, you're deeply engaged in the present. And then you look towards the future with audacity, the willingness to take risks, to face failure, with authenticity, really showing up in accordance with your values. That's what that means, not what color you dye your hair or what you wear, to work. That's more cultural relative to a work environment. But being authentic means being able to work and live according to your values, and then ultimately adaptability. Adaptability is that last part, which really requires you to have done all of that other work.
I love that. That is some phenomenal stuff right there, dropping the knowledge bombs on everybody. That's great stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
What are you most proud about with this journey with the Grit Institute? Like you've had such great growth along the way. What are you most proud of?
Oh gosh, I don't think I've ever been asked that question actually, relative to this specific work.
Yeah.
And I guess I feel very humble about the idea that, like, the grit factor, I know, I mean, there's over 10,000 copies out in the world, a lot more. I haven't caught up lately, but I know it changes lives. But that's not just because of me. That's because of all of these incredible leaders that shared their stories, right? And shared their lessons learned. And so I think there's a pretty big piece of humility in understanding that, again, I just have my own story, my own understandings, but I'm able to share this framework because so many other people have shared their stories as well. And I know the framework works. I see it time and again, changing lives, changing work, changing people's professional careers in really important ways. And so I would say I'm most proud of the fact that I know that it has been life-changing for so many people. And that's just been an incredible gift to be able to offer that to others.
Absolutely. One of the things that I see a lot in what your aspect of your business is, like, you have to stay up with like changing trends and like
Yeah.
technology. How do you guys stay in front of all of that? Because like it changes so
Yeah.
rapidly, right?
It does change so rapidly. I think you need to know what's going on and certainly be playing in that sandbox for sure. But I would say that the fundamentals of leadership have not changed. And I think that's one of the opportunities that at least I have at the Grid Institute, is to remind people that at the end of the day, your business may change in terms of some of the tactics that you use for execution, depending on what the business is. But running the business is about people, and it always has been, and it always will be. And that does not change based on technology. And if you allow technology to change that, I think you're going to fail. So there's been this really great opportunity to come back to the basics, not just for each individual leader, owning your own story, connecting to purpose, that foundational place that we reconnect again and again, but to say, hey, yeah, you've got to keep up on all this stuff. You need to know what's going on. You need to certainly be engaging in it, especially if it's relevant to your business. But running your business is about people, and leadership has always been about people, and that's always been about heart. So if we can keep the human piece of how it is that we work in the businesses that we do, we're going to be more successful than if we let that go in lieu of technology.
Absolutely. I also think about this as like how you build and maintain such a strong culture when you're building like you're building the Grit Institute. Have many people that work with you, like, you can that one wrong hire can actually push you back, tenfold, and push you back to what you've already built. So how do you maintain that good culture?
I think with culture is leader driven ideally, right? And is also then continually reinforced. And you reinforce culture in many, many different ways by the stories that you tell and the examples that you give. And you want to do that constantly. You do that within any kind of a grouping, right? A family group should do this, organization should do this, nonprofit should do this. But we're talking about the stories that represent our values. And so when you do that, when you stay connected to those values, when you reinforce those verbally and in the way that you do your business, ensure that you're always connecting back to those values, that's how you maintain that strong culture. And as soon as you let that go, the values and the people piece are what keep the culture strong. And those are not things that you can let go for any reason. And at the same time, it's a both and. Depending on what type of business you're running, you're going to need to keep up with the technology as well.
Love it. Love it. So like as you've progressed throughout the years now, you've kind of seen where you wanted to take things, but do you feel like that like the changing social environment, socioeconomics, do you think it plays a role in how you forecast and move your business forward?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was worried about that over the last few years, to be honest, and wondering how some of the perception is reality stuff. And I certainly do work with groups of women leaders, and I will certainly work within the context of what we have called, diversity, equity, and inclusion in organizations. I also simply work with leadership in organizations, so it really depends on the goal of the organization. What I'm finding is that the strongest organizations will always be about inclusivity because at the end of the day, we have to ensure if we're going to be successful that every single person who is most qualified has the chance to contribute their best self. So however you want to say that and however you want to play it out in your business is completely up to you, but you can't afford to not do that. Frankly, I mean, in the world that we're playing in right now, and in the way that things are changing so rapidly, you need the best people in the right roles in order to be successful. So I think my initial concern about some of the ways that things were shifting has mostly been allayed because the strong companies are always going to come back at core to saying we want the best people, no matter who they are, doing their best work so that we can succeed together. And because of that, I don't think the work that I'm doing, no matter which sphere it's in, is ever going to get old. And I don't mean just get old, but I don't think it's ever going to be irrelevant. And it's again because there is this tendency for some companies to chase a bright shiny object, right? So we're chasing AI or we're chasing whatever the new advancement is. And again, you've got to stay on top of it. But those companies that let people go and let the idea of taking care of people go are not going to ultimately be successful. So I will always have meaningful work.
That's a great way to put it, man. So thank you for sharing your perspective. It's been really great on that piece. Thank you.
Absolutely. No, thanks for asking. It's a great question, actually, and an important one that we all should be asking.
Well, one of the things that we do on this podcast is we try to get a little bit of insight into the personal side of the leaders of companies. Are you open for a
Yeah.
little rapid fire questioning?
Sure, of course.
All right. So, all right, here we go. So, like, we know you're an author, but do you have a favorite book that you're reading right now?
Ooh, favorite book that I'm reading right now. I am reading a book right now called Discernment by Henri Nouwen, who is a Dutch pastor and theologian that I love. And my favorite book is always the book that I'm reading right now. Almost always, almost always. So I'm going to leave it at that.
Awesome. Very cool. I mean, I'm sure the military sent you places, you've traveled all over the world, but like, do you have a bucket list travel spot that you still want to go to?
So many, Ryan, so many, don't you? I mean,
Oh, I
yes, for
do.
sure. I want to go to Israel. I want to go to Egypt. I want to go to India. I want to go back to Africa. I want to go to the Galapagos and to Peru.
Oh,
And
Papago.
yes, and then we spent a year in France as a family, and I'd love to just spend a lot more time over there.
Very cool. Are you an early bird or a night owl?
I'm kind of not either one anymore. I can make either one work, but I really need my sleep. So I can both sleep in and go to bed early.
I dig it. I dig it. If you had the ability to have dinner with one historical figure, either living or deceased, who would it be?
Oh gosh. All right. I'm just gonna go with the first thing that comes to mind, which is Beryl Markham. She was one of the early pilots in Africa, actually, the first person to fly east to west across the Atlantic. She actually was raised in Africa and has an amazing book called West with the Night. I think she would be totally fascinating.
That's awesome. Very cool. What about like beverages that you drink, like coffee, tea, soda, water, energy drinks? What are you drinking?
I like any kind of fizzy water and I love my coffee. And I'm starting to try to work in some green tea as well. But yeah,
Okay.
definitely a coffee. Definitely like my soy latte in the morning.
There you go. There you go. Do you have a favorite coffee bar?
Ooh, well, so we live in the middle of nowhere in this little tiny town called Winthrop, Washington. And my favorite coffee place there is the Little Dipper Cafe.
Nice. Good call. I like it. All right. So if you had a superpower you're one of the Avengers or the X-Men, what one superpower would you have?
Ooh, wow. Maybe the ability to add 24 hours to my 24-hour day. How about that?
Ability to manipulate time. I like it.
Yes.
Very cool. What's your favorite way to decompress?
I like to read primarily. I really like to read. I know that's a really exciting answer. I also like to watercolor paint. I like to draw, and I love to go for walks in the mountains.
That's fantastic. And you're up in the Pacific Northwest, so there's lots of mountains to be able to hike through.
We live right in the mountains, so it's a pretty lovely spot.
Very cool. Do you have a favorite cheat meal?
A favorite what?
Cheat meal?
Oh, cheat meal? Oh gosh. Well, pretty much anything with chocolate counts, I think. And that would probably qualify.
I love it. I love it. Lastly, excuse me, geez. What's on your workout playlist?
Oh, all 80s rock, like all big hair band stuff, right? So Bon Jovi, AC/DC, all that is totally my sweet spot.
I love it. That's awesome. A little hairband action to finish up. You
Definitely.
crushed it on the rapid fire section. Thank you for being such a good sport with that.
Sure, anytime.
Sorry for the coughing spell in the middle of that, but we got through it.
You're right.
I'm good now. So like one thing, if you could go back and give yourself a little piece of advice, what's that one piece you would give yourself when you're going into the military?
Oh, that is a really important question. It's interesting. I ask that of a lot of people, and I've rarely been asked that. I think one of the most important things that a young person should know and that I should have known is that it's okay to be yourself. And I think especially because I was going into combat aviation when they had not had women before, I cut my hair short up the back and I was trying so hard to fit in with that sort of a culture that I think it would have been helpful to have had advice that, no one expects you to be anything other than yourself and that you bring plenty of strengths to the table and you don't need to try to do something that makes you not yourself. At the end of the day, I think one of the reasons I left the military was because I felt like I had to be somebody that I wasn't. And it would have been helpful to have had that advice early on.
That's super powerful. Thank you for sharing that. And our audience members can take that for themselves as well. Thank you.
Absolutely. I hope they will. And it's the opportunity that you have too when you are transitioning out of the military is to say, hey, where am I meant to contribute my best self? And again, going back to owning your own story, not the military story of you, not your unit story, right? That was kind of what we had to do in uniform. And that was very powerful also. And it's probably part of every one of our stories. But you've got another story that's who you are meant to be and how it is that you're meant to contribute in the world. And I think that is the opportunity that we have to continue to serve after the uniform is gone and go into the world and give our best for the rest of our lives.
Absolutely. Well said. Conversely, now that you're in the place that you're at, where do you see yourself in like 5 years?
I hope I'm doing a lot of the same work. I'm building out the Grit Institute has a lot of leadership development programs. And so we have online programs for individuals or for organizations. So I can see that building out a lot more than as we continue to expand offerings and continue to bring on new clients into that work. I'll still be keynoting, I think, probably in 5 years, and I hope to have another couple of books out by then.
That's awesome. Now, as we kind of wrap up here, how can, if people are interested in getting a hold of you and understanding your services, how can they reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on LinkedIn at Shannon H. Polson, same on Instagram, but probably the best place is my website, which is shannonpolson.com or thegritinstitute.com. And when you contact me through those sites, it'll come directly to me.
And I know you talked earlier a little bit that listeners from this podcast can receive a little bit of like a holiday discount on some stuff, right?
Yes, I'd love to do that. Yeah, so the Grit Institute has 2 signature programs. Again, we have a couple of additional offerings coming out soon, but any program at the Grit Institute, which is online, on-demand training, so it's asynchronous, you get to do this at your own pace. If you sign up as an individual, is 50% off for your listeners, and you just need to use the code VET50. So VET50, and that will give you the veteran discount for the Grit Institute programs for individuals.
That's fantastic. And thank you for sharing that with our listeners. It's a great program that you have going on and looking forward to even more success with you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ryan. Would be thrilled to invite any of your listeners into that ecosystem and have you part of that community.
Awesome. Well, Shannon, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. I wish I could talk to you more and more. We'll have you back on the Milpreneur Podcast next year in 2026, if you'd like. And
Great.
thank you so much for being a part of it today.
Thank you, Ryan. Thanks for your great work.
Absolutely. Once again, Ryan Van Ornum signing off for the Milpreneur Podcast. Make sure you go like, comment, and subscribe. And this podcast was brought to you today by Synergist. It's your scalable operations team. Go check out synergist.com for more information. Everyone, until the next time, have a great time and stay blessed. Take care, everyone.